Awesome. Recording is in progress. I forgot to record yesterday's phone call. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I'm coming to you live. I'm sorry I'm late. I literally was meeting a mom in the school parking lot and ketones came up. So had to do the work, right? So she's got my she's got the video, she's got my number. Welcome, Mark, on his birthday. Happy birthday, Mark. Thank you for joining us super early from Hawaii. I know it's so early for you to be up on your birthday. I feel bad. But you are going to be discussing the Attract, Connect, Enroll, the ACE, as well as taking massive action straight out of Playbook this last weekend. So I'm going to roll it over to you, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to run through these and some kind of bullet points. I mean, some of you will have heard this before. Some of you maybe for the first time. And what I find it oftentimes, even if we've heard it before, maybe we just need to hear it right now at that given moment by somebody else. And one of the great things about this particular playbook, while there were some of the same people that we've often heard from before, they also had a lot of people on speaking that I never knew of. I hadn't heard of them, had never seen them before. So sometimes, again, it's just hearing things maybe presented in a different way that resonates at that moment, that puts us forward in a greater, towards momentum, action, that kind of thing. I thought I'd quickly just start by saying how Brian Underwood, BU's, kicked off Playbook, because he always has great things to share. And I'm just going to read a couple of quick things he shared that I think we always need to hear. And that's mainly right now, it's time for me or for us to take action and get in the game, as he says it, and run the play that works. Because a big underlying theme throughout the whole playbook, throughout the whole day, is running the play that works. And you'll hear about in a number of different ways, but running the play that work is oftentimes referred to as ACE, Attract, Connect, Enroll. But it's also it could be taking a series of steps that propel you forward. And so running that quote unquote play is really just the main thing is getting in the game, getting focused, making that decision to do something every day. And he just, apply, and practice towards mastery. And, action creates momentum. And to believe in ourselves. Belief in self is everything. We've heard that countless times before. But he just wanted us to remind all of us that we are enough. I am enough every day to do something. I'm enough. And you've heard it before, probably, comparison is a thief of joy. We don't ever want to compare ourselves against somebody else that maybe is further along or doing something we haven't done, and that intimidates us. We are enough, and we can do so much every single day in some small way that just provides a little bit more action towards creating momentum. And it doesn't have to be something massive, even though I'm going to cover that topic in a second, but just we are enough to do something every day. And he also referred to the book that some of us heard of. I've not read it yet, but I definitely want to get it because he referred to it a couple of times by author Ryan Holiday, called The Obstacle is the Way. And he really recommended to all of us to read it. And anytime Brian Underwood mentions a book, I make a point to write it down and ultimately get it. So Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. And then just to go, to go all in and truly apply what we can because of our why. And we've heard that before. None of this makes any bit of difference, listen to me or anybody else, if we don't have ultimately a true why, a deep emotional why as to why we've chosen to be a promoter with Prove It. Not a customer, but truly a promoter. And what is that why? If it's your children, if whatever it may be, something that is emotional. Generally, it's not going to be a material thing, but emotional, something that, again, really is pulling you along to go, I have got to do this. I want to do this because of this. And so just, identify that. That's so important. Otherwise, it made that whole day of Saturday kind of pointless. And so with that, and again, taking one step at a time creates a ripple. And so even though some of the things he's talked about many times, it's always great to be reminded about it and to hear it. So then I'm going to cover, like I say, ACE. There was 8 major topics, and perhaps you're going to hear from all of them over the next few days. I'm going to cover 2 of them rather quickly, but 8 major topics that the different leaders and the trainers throughout Prove It led, along with some others. Michael Rutherford and April Schaefer, who we all know, or many of you do, started off with ACE. And what is ACE? That's the foundational play that works for our business platform. And that is attract, connect, and enroll or experience. And basically, Michael Rutherford just kicked off by saying, ACE by basically attracting people to ketone conversation, and then connecting with those people in some powerful, meaningful way, developing rapport, and then ultimately providing them an experience through a 5-10 day experience of that kind, ultimately perhaps rolling them as a customer and or a promoter. So those three kind of key categories is what is the foundation of our business. And it's basically, but attracting can be simply as wearing the conversation. And just like I'm doing right now, I'm choosing to wear Prove It swag, t-shirt, a hat. I cannot tell you how many times when I'm meeting out on the road, out and about, and I'm wearing my shirt, and especially around a certain bunch of people, they see me always wearing a variety of my swag shirts. And you know what? Even though they see me doing it all the time, they begin to realize, they think, well, maybe that's his company. And these are people that I know, I see all the time. And some of these people I actually work with, and these aren't my main job, but a number of people I work with, another tech company. And so they see me wearing these Prove It swag shirts all the time. And you know what? It has ultimately led to a conversation because they eventually start to ask me, because I don't say anything, I'm just wearing my shirt all the time. So to attract, wear the conversation. And we have a lot of cool swag. And so make your ketones loud and in public to attract. And he said, and you can attract all day long, but you have to be able to then connect with people. You have to be able to connect. So one way that April and Michael talked about, and I know that Don's covered this and other people, Tony's covered it, is to match the hatch. And what does that mean? It's actually a phrase from fishing, but the bottom line is to match the hatch. For example, I'm a fitness person, but I'm not a mom of crazy kids. And I don't mean crazy, but small, active, busy children. So if I happen to be meeting a mom who is looking at doing this even part-time as a promoter, a new promoter, she really wants to get going, but she's got 2 or 3 kids, she's busy, she works, et cetera, then I may want to put her in touch with somebody like Dawn Caldwell. Why? Because she's a busy mom, she has her own practice, and she's a promoter. And also it's a female to female. And sometimes that can be the big match the hatch, is putting the same gender maybe with somebody that they can relate to. Quite frankly, since the majority of this business is 90% of it's women, which is fantastic. Women make things happen. I love working with women, but sometimes I need to hear something from a guy. I need to hear from a male promoter. And so I may not relate as well. So if I happen to hypothetically be a new male promoter in this business, and Dawn's my sponsor, if you will, my leader, I might need to hear from a guy that's a runner versus just hearing from several other women about what this is doing for them or how they're going about it. So again, it's matching the hatch, trying, if it's finding somebody within your organization that you may believe will relate to the person you want to bring on board. And that's such a powerful thing, because it's a very powerful dynamic to have a 3-way conversation, whether it's on the phone, ultimately on a Zoom, could start as a text, 3-way text, to where you're bringing somebody in the conversation. Now it's not all on me to talk to this new promoter. Now I'm bringing somebody like a Dawn or a Tony or a Matthew or a Bree or Ken Cools or whomever, and I know, or Tamari, to provide this 3-way dynamic. One, it's creating community. They're thinking, wow, this is what a cool group of people. Meanwhile, now we got a 3-way conversation going, and it really makes people feel comfortable to hear about another perspective that they can better relate to because of who they are and what they're about. And so Match the Hatch is a really powerful tool in connecting people within our community, within the conversation, and so forth. And also our resources, connecting people to our resources. You've heard it before. You want to be the messenger, not the message. What does that mean? I've been around this space since the beginning. I've been around this space for over 6 years now. It's hard to believe. I know a lot, but I'm not a doctor. And just like we've heard before, Michael Rutherford, who I really like and I resonate with, and who is obviously super successful within our company, he tries to play it like he doesn't know a lot. And he's pointing people to resources, even though I'm sure he can answer their questions. He'd rather make it seem like he's sort of dumb, if you will, because if you come off as too much of an expert, then that means the new promoter is going to feel like they've got to know everything when they got started. And that's how I actually truthfully felt. We had no resources when I got started. But when I started hearing from Brian James, my sponsor, about beta hydroxybutyrate, I couldn't pronounce that. I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to spend weeks trying to figure this thing out. Well, now we have so many resources. And I would just encourage us to always use our resources to connect people to, as well as to your sponsor or a leader or a coach within your group, because we've got Prove It TV, we've got the Wednesday doctor calls. All of these are phenomenal resources to point people to connect them, to help them to better understand what we're apart. So you're attracting people with swag, you're attracting people with conversation in all kinds of ways. And then you're connecting to resources. And then ultimately, because again, we want to remember, in terms of people experiencing this technology, we deserve to hear about people deserve to hear about our technology. We have to have the guts to care about people, to invite people every day, everybody, and let the ambition, and this is a great statement by Michael Rutherford. People deserve to hear about our technology, have the guts to care about people, invite everybody, and let the ambition sort them out. So you don't necessarily have to be wondering what they're, if they're really going to be a promoter or really going to take it to the next level. We just have to have the responsibility to share as much as possible with anybody. I can't tell you the people that have surprised me in my own organization, that when I was initially talking to them, I was thinking maybe more like they'd want to be a customer. I look upon everybody being a customer because of this technology, because it's for everybody and it helps all of us. So everybody in my mind is starting off as a customer. But the people that have surprised me in my organization are the people that I necessarily didn't think they'd ever want to become a promoter or really start to kill as a promoter. But you don't know what people are like inside. You don't know what their dreams and goals are. You don't know what their why is necessarily up front. So I have been so pleasantly surprised by the people that, by simply me having the guts to share the conversation, and out of excitement because of what it's done for me, what some of these people have turned around and it's just lit them up. And now they've got these dreams and goals, and suddenly they're some of my main runners with me that I never would have expected. So, it's selfish. You may have heard this before. It's selfish not to have the ketone conversation with someone. And I have to remind myself that all the time. And it can be so simple to have that conversation. And it usually, like, I was just at a dinner party the other day for a 4-year-old's, well, it was a 4-year-old's birthday. We're a bunch of people there. I'm meeting people for the first time. And naturally, people might start to get to know each other and say, well, what do you do? And I don't ever tell about my main job. I say, oh, what do you know about ketones and ketosis? Maybe that'd be a good, I always say, well, let me ask you this. Maybe the best way for me to answer your question is, what do you know about ketones or ketosis? And then that just rolls into the conversation. And I'm just being natural about it. I'm just being, and then I start to talk about my company. I never say, well, I'm with this company. No, it's always about my company. In fact, one of my biggest promoters at the very beginning thought I did own the company because of how I presented myself. She thought I owned the company. And so continually connect with people. And this is also important as we kind of lead into, getting somebody enrolled. So, you've attracted them to the conversation in some way, shape, or form. You've connected them. You start to create rapport, just a normal, natural way of having a conversation about anything. And then you begin to want them to have an experience. And let's say now they've had a great trial, they've done a 10-day experience, you've stayed in touch with them every single day to make sure how they're doing, what flavors they like, any questions they have. You put into some resources maybe during that 10-day period, the doctor call, etc., Prove It TV. And now maybe they really are ready to maybe get started in some way beyond just being a customer. One of the things that we have to remind ourselves of, and I'm pointing a finger at myself, is let's say somebody is starting off as a promoter. They've gotten started. So it's so important to continually connect and stay in touch with everyone in my organization. It doesn't stop after attracting, connecting, and getting them started with the product. I have to remind myself that I've got a whole bunch of customers and I do not stay in touch with all of them often enough. Oh, there's a number of them I do, but some people, and they're getting ketones regularly, and maybe they live out of state. I am not staying in touch with people enough. And truthfully, to create stickiness, loyalty, and I'm going to get into this in a minute about massive action, it's so important with the littlest things we can do to just keep, I guess, a greater sense of community and culture within our own individual organizations. And whether you're starting and you're one person and you don't have anybody in your group yet, or you've got 5 people or 15 or 25 or 100 or 500, thousands, well, ultimately. But the thing is I kept hearing this sort of recurring theme a little bit throughout the week, the day, and that was to really stay in touch with your people, your customers, your promoters, obviously promoters, because you want to help them grow, but even the customers, because the great majority of the people in your organization are going to be customers, and you want them to, especially if they're on SmartShip, you want to let them know you still think of them, and there's a little things you can do to thank them and to keep them loyal. And it could be sending them a couple of packets of a new trial of a new flavor that they maybe didn't even get on, or maybe they didn't ultimately learn about quickly enough, even though you might have texted them about it. Sending them a couple of packets. I've got a guy he's on SmartShip. He's a professional trainer. He loves the product. It's done so much for him, and he talks to his clients about it. But we don't talk all that often because he's busy. I reach out to him, but so what I did was, and sometimes we can't connect live, I just sent him some stuff. I said, and with a little note, it wasn't a beautiful little card. It was a little note on a piece of paper. It said, "Hey, Bill, thinking about you, man. I know we haven't connected in a while. Hey, I don't know if you've tried this Ketone Pro, but this is a couple of my favorite go-to flavors. And also, here's something else. Appreciate you, man. Got to connect soon." Man, as soon as he got that, he immediately reached out to me, and he was so stoked. It didn't cost me really anything, but it was the thought behind it. And again, it's that whole feeling of community and culture about once you're getting somebody enrolled or they've gone beyond the experience, what we're doing to kind of build on and maintain that. And relationships take work. That was another thing that came out of the day. Relationships take work, whether it's a marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, or just a good friendship. It takes work. And sometimes we can feel like we're the only ones that we're driving that friendship. But you know what? At the end of the day, people appreciate it. And so it does take work, does take some time to maintain relationships, no doubt. But again, if you're going to run ultimately a large organization to basically have a team of volunteers, a company of volunteers, it's going to take work. And so, but the bottom line is have fun doing it. And that's another thing Rutherford talks about. If we don't have fun doing any of this, there's no reason to do it. So we have to always have fun in how we approach everything. And then ultimately, as part of the whole experience, is Rutherford closed before he went into this next section about being a world-class event builder. And Playbook was an event. Upcoming More is an event. Epic was an event. So all of these are events, and we have to become great. I know Jessie Lee Ward has talked about this, and she's fantastic at it, is becoming a world-class event builder. Events are key resources for us and everyone who attends. And again, it's a resource. So we don't have to know everything, and I don't have to try to explain everything. By getting people to these events, even if they can only attend a portion of it for some reason, that allows not only for your team to see and experience the culture of Prove It, but to be educated, to be inspired, and ultimately to help create momentum. So again, if we can do everything we can to invite people to our events, and it's not just about inviting them, it's about really personally getting involved on a phone call, on the phone, not just sending out a text blast, on the phone, and personally inviting them and with excitement about why they should consider or go to this particular event. And we're talking about promoters now, your promoters. And so that goes into the topic, which was the number 2 topic. So it started off with ACE, and I know I've kind of run through that quickly, and I could expand on it further, but those kind of some of the key points that came up with ACE. You can also find all this information about ACE in our back office and on the Prove It Promoter Facebook page. Phenomenal, some videos there by our leaders. So again, if you want to cover this in greater detail, ACE is covered on the Prove It Promoter private Facebook page. Now, the second one was taking massive action. And truthfully, that can be kind of an intimidating topic, especially if you're new to our business or new to the community, or even if you're not. But you've heard this before, and this was led by Stephanie Mielke, a woman named Brittany Anderson, and Alexis Brady. And they had some great things to share. And I'll quickly go over this because I know we're going to run out of time shortly. Bottom line is, they start off by saying, we're going to talk about taking massive action, but don't let that intimidate you, because you cannot mess up good for perfect. And I know that's a common theme that you may have heard from other people talk about, but it is so, so true. Don't mess up good for perfect. Now, bottom line is, taking massive action is just doing a few things over and over and over and creating repetition. Massive action doesn't have to be this daunting thing of, I've got to talk to 20 people every single day. I've got to sponsor 3 people every single day. No. It is simply doing a few things over and over. Practice the skills we want to get better at. Don't overthink it. Practice the skills. So if I know there's certain things that I want to get better at. I truthfully need to be a little better at social media. I need to learn certain things about IG. In fact, I go to my wife for that because she knows Instagram better than I do. I'm really fine on Facebook, but man, I go to her about IG. And so, and then of course there's TikTok and there's other platforms. But the bottom line is whether it's, or maybe it's just having how to have a normal conversation with somebody. Practice the skills we want to get better at. Remember to lead with the ketone, with my ketone experience. And you've heard this before. Oftentimes, the simplest thing we can do to so-called create massive action is just by having the ketone conversation. The more times we have the conversation leads to the more times somebody trials our technology, and that creates momentum. And the bottom line is to simply get comfortable at opening up the conversation. It's just like you may have heard before, what is your elevator pitch? The whole concept of if you were to get into an elevator and somebody asked you what you did and you only have 2 floors going up the elevator to tell them, what can you share in 30 seconds that gets their attention and could lead to a phone number or a future conversation? So have the ability, and if you're not sure, to work with your coach or mentor, have the ability to open up the ketone conversation. And then when you have a couple of minutes to do that, and it's beyond an quote unquote short elevator pitch, it's simply you're sharing your own experience. I have to remind myself about my own personal experience because I got to tell you, I started over 6 years ago. I was never getting involved because of fat loss. I barely was understanding all the qualities of what ketones did. Brian James and I and others like Tony, it was the technology of what it did for me, but I don't have some great before and after picture. I have to remember though, and that's what I have to weave into my conversation. And when I do it, it does create attention. It does get people's attention. If for me, it was the mental clarity and focus, the sustained energy, and fantastic and way better sleep. And then when it came to endurance, what it was doing for me to avoid having to bonk like on a run. So I have to remember to weave what ketones did for me, because I don't necessarily have a before and after picture that people go, whoa, like they do with Michael Rutherford in the early days. Rutherford's before and after pictures were enough to create a conversation. I don't have that. So remember and think about what your personal experience was with ketones. And then you just want to lead and talk about that in a normal, natural way to get people's attention. And it will continue the conversation. And so let's see here. And this is an important thing in terms of creating massive action, perhaps after an event, like a playbook or a more or an epic. And Alexis Brady said this, and it's really true. And I have to point a finger at myself. If you show up to an event, playbook, more, epic, all the events that prove it does. If you show up to an event, whether it's virtual or live, and you don't come out of that event doing some form of massive action, then the event was a waste of time. You know, if you're going to take an entire 5.5 hours of playbook, or if it's like a Keto Academy or Epic, which was like 3 days spread out. If you're going to go to these things and spend all these hours and hours of time taking notes, and then you don't do anything to apply it in some way, shape, or form, then it becomes kind of a waste of time. And so I would just encourage all of us to always look, and I think it's kind of obvious when you find a few great nuggets coming out of an event, even if it's just 1 or 2 or 3 great nuggets that shifts the trajectory of your mindset or momentum or inspiration, it's key. And so in terms of taking massive action, Alexis talked about, it doesn't have to be something massive in terms of what the word means. It's just doing little things that propel you forward. It could be literally taking that mini or max builder pack, that box that you've had sitting off on the edge of your closet, and taking out all the packets and dividing them up into 5 and 10 days and keeping them in your view, in your line of sight. So then it says, okay, I need to get these out. I need to start getting these out. And so it could be going into your stories and mixing up some ketones, just again, to create an attract, what am I trying to say? To create attraction. Whatever it is, it's doing something every day that's for your business. And so Alexis talked about these 5 pillars that she does, and she's done them for years. And that is the 5 simple topics, or for her was add, engage, share, invite, follow up. And I'll repeat that. the 5 FAB, as she calls it, the Fab Five. And these are the 5 pillars that she says taking some form of action in one or more of these 5 pillars for herself every single day. The first, add. The second one was engage. The third one was share. The fourth one was invite. And the fifth one was follow up. Add. Who could I add to my community in terms of maybe within her Facebook or IG? Who can I add in terms of people, creating new relationships on social media? Who can I engage with? Who has maybe been following or liking me that I maybe have not really engaged with and I could talk to? Who can I share this conversation with? Who could I invite to something? Maybe it's a team Zoom. Maybe it's, an upcoming event. Maybe it's something that you're going to do for like a keto life party. Who could I invite? And then follow up. Who do I need to follow up with that truthfully is maybe fallen off my radar, or I talked to 3 days ago and I haven't followed up with, or I know they ordered a 10-day and truthfully I haven't been in touch with them. There's always people we can follow up with. And so under these 5 categories, she reminds herself every single day, which of these 5 or more, which of these do I need to, what can I focus on? Because sometimes on a given day, you can be kind of feel overwhelmed to go, gosh, what should I do? Gosh, there's so many different things about this business. Well, for her, these 5 things kind of get her back centered and focused. And by simply focusing on one or more of them, of the 5, she now knows that she's got things she can focus on today, again, towards that quote unquote massive action. DMOs are a form of massive action, your daily method of operation. And the PED app is a great form of a DMO. Have you done your PED app? And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's an app that Pruvit developed, and you can download it, and it's fantastic. And it has a number of daily tasks, daily methods of operation, if you will, that help us to grow personally and for our business. And again, act. Don't wait for the perfect time. Just do something every day. Brittany Anderson said, keep the ketone conversation new. Sometimes, if you feel like you're talking to the same people, that's where you want to think about, okay, who can I add to my community? I know that me personally, I need to add more people to my Facebook friends and IG by both following more people and commenting on them, and that creates rapport and relationships. So again, it's creating more relationships, because the more people that know who I am and know what I'm doing and are beginning to follow me, whether you're starting off with 100 Facebook friends or you've got 4,000, for me, it's adding more and more people so that I can start to have more eyeballs following me. I can just tell in the last couple of years, by me going from 500 friends on Facebook to over 1,000, if I simply post a certain photo of my wife and I, it's amazing now how many comments come back and how many likes, because people are watching. And so, again, the more you can create an ad to your social media, as one example, is a form of massive action. And then engaging with those people, sharing the conversation with them privately, inviting them to something. And then as Alexis talked about, following up with them. And then this was a really simple thing to share, but I thought it was so important. If you've got people that have been following you, but you really don't know if they're, I've got, like, for example, there's this one woman, she always likes everything I post on about Freebie Friday. But I now need to take that further. She's never commented, but she likes. So one simple thing that Brittany talked about is, you could go for these kinds of people that are sort of following you, but you don't know if they're really interested. Well, find out. Simply be bold enough to say, and this isn't a private message. This could be a text, could be a phone call, but let's say it's just a text or a private message. Hey, Steph, thank you for following along on my journey. I appreciate you, or I appreciate it. Are you looking for more information on what I'm drinking, or are you just being a cheerleader or supporter of what I'm experiencing? So again, by asking a version of that question, at least you're going to find out, because a lot of people may be just shy enough to actually comment or say something, but they really are interested in knowing more. And so again, as a form of massive action, it's asking that question. And I know there's a ton of people that I, Mark, can ask a version of that. Hey, Steph, thank you for following along on my journey. I appreciate it. Are you looking for more information about what I've been drinking, or about ketones, or are you just being a great supporter of what I'm doing? Because I really appreciate it. Brittany said it was amazing how many people came back and said, I'd love to know more. Truthfully, I've always kind of wanted to know more, and I just wasn't, I just didn't ask. So again, that's a form of repetitive action that leads to massive action. And I know we're going to wrap here quick. Alexis Brady talked about raising a visibility. The more people need to see what I'm doing. And again, it goes back to adding people to your Facebook groups or your Facebook, joining Facebook groups. Tony's talked about this a lot. Joining Facebook groups, groups that you're interested in. And if it's a mom with twins, and maybe she's a part of a mom of twins group on Facebook. I happen to love Labrador dogs. I love Frisbee. I love hiking. So I have found there's these Facebook groups that focus on that. And then when you're engaging with these new strangers on these groups and just engaging, not talking about ketones, nothing, not a word about ketones, but engaging with them, liking and commenting, especially commenting about your shared interests, that will ultimately lead to conversations. And that will ultimately lead to new relationships and new friendships and new eyeballs following you on your personal Facebook and seeing what you're doing with ketones. Stephanie Milke talked about Atomic Habits. She did mention that book. Many of you have heard about it. Many of you have read it like me. Atomic Habits by James Clear is a phenomenal book if you've not read it. And it speaks to the things we're talking about. And Don, I think we got to wrap. Yep. Okay. So I will just leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That was amazing. And I took some notes. I've heard the Fab Five before, but I love rehearing how she reaches out to people who are just like, keep liking. But we can still continue on with some of that on Thursday. Tomorrow is going to be talking about trials. But yes, I got to go. My workout crew is waiting for me. We're supposed to start at 9:30. So we're going to log off. I will post this after I'm done with that workout. Thanks you so much for that information. And we'll continue on with it on Thursday.
Take care, everyone.